There we are. Okay, great. And you can let me know at any time if you want me to stop recording or if you want some part not being there. So it's, just so that is clear. So what we're going to talk about a lot of things here in this course, and especially from the point of view that this course is quite a condensed course, because usually we do it in 7 sessions, but this time it's going to be only 5. So that means that with some of the things we're going to race ahead a little bit, because we do spend some time on theoretical aspects, but what I want to keep in this course is all the practical things that we do. So that means that we'll perhaps have a little bit less theory than in the 7-week course. But what we're going to discuss in this course is, and what we're going to do in this course. First of all, we can talk about what we want to accomplish in this course, and then we're going to talk about what we want to discuss in this course, and what your expectations are. So I can tell you what I want to happen and what has happened in all the other instances. And that is that we, at the end, in the last session, we publish an anthology of short stories. And in this anthology of short stories, each of you will have 1 story, and one of you will have 2 stories, because each of you are going to write 2 stories during the 5 times that we will meet, and between the 5 times actually, and also the first one is more like a practice run where we learn the principles as we go along, and the second story is after you have learned them and have got some feedback from the first story that you write, and then you write the second story, also some feedback, but of course less than in the 7-week course, and then we publish in the last time. So as you can imagine, you basically have 4 weeks to write 2 stories. So it's not that much time, and also you will be learning some principles and some techniques that we will implement in these stories. So the things that we're going to be talking about are, to begin with, we're going to be talking about the hero's journey. Has any of you heard about the hero's journey before? Yeah.
I taught a workshop that was titled that way.
Okay.
So I'm very curious to see.
So you're pretty familiar with it. That's good. Could I ask from what perspective did you teach the workshop? Was it psychology, or was it writing, or?
It was a oral storytelling workshop for children.
Okay.
And it was supposed to kind of inspire them to see that their most precious story is their own, and to kind of get them started from somewhere. And I thought, the easiest and most obvious place to start is with the kids themselves, because that way they get to know one another. And it's also something fun for a lot of kids to see themselves as the main character of a story, because they do that naturally already. So
yeah, and that makes sense, and that's why the hero's journey is used, like basically, more or less. I mean, in every Hollywood movie that you can see, is the script writing is based on the hero's journey.
And again, all the books they read and the movies they see have this structure already. So it was something that was familiar to them, although they weren't maybe aware of it already.
And not only because of that, but also because it's turns out that the hero's journey is actually something that is hardwired into our brain. So the hero's journey came about through this famous book by the psychologist Joseph Campbell, who wrote his seminal work, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And in this book, he talks about how he's collected mythology from all over the world, and each place has stories that are structurally similar to the other places, and it always follows the same structure. So this is what Joseph Campbell calls the monomyth. And the idea is that it's from cultures that are so distant from one another that they're not, it's not that, I don't know, it's not that the East African tribesmen met the Alaskan Inuits and told their stories. It's that we're describing the same thing, and there's something in common in the human brain that is expressed in the hero's journey. And that is why it is used so much in Hollywood, for example, because it's what works, right? It's what people recognize when they see this on the screen. They recognize, and yeah, there's something in our neurology that says that this is true, and that is why, you know, for example, the classical hero's journey is the George Lucas with Star Wars. He really, really, you know, started that. We're going to talk about the hero's journey a little bit in depth. That's one of the pillars of the theoretical pillars of the course. Another one is the snowflake method. And the snowflake method is a method for creating a structure. And the thing about that is that, well, it's a way of creating a structure. So the hero's journey itself is a structure. It's a kind of a universal meta structure, whereas the snowflake method is a technique by which you create the structure for your story. And this is an extremely useful technique. I used it when I wrote the fifth and final draft of my novel, The World, because I'd written 4 drafts of that novel. And, you know, although the writing was flowing very well and all that, the structure at the end just didn't fit together. Oh, I just realized I need to plug in. It was, I didn't know it was unplugged. Here we are. Yeah, there we are. Okay. So then I just spent a month only working on structure and managed to use the snowflake method to create a very stringent structure. And lo and behold, when I then put things together after I had only created structure, it fit together, and the fifth draft of the novel actually worked structure-wise. And that is why the snowflake method is one of the most important elements of this course, because what I want to teach you in this course is not, what I want to teach you is, well, not so much about the accessing your own inspiration and intuition, etc., because you will do that since you are your own people, you know. But what I want to teach you is to actually be able to do some technical things, it means that those things which are uniquely you will flow much more seamlessly, and to give you some tools that you can use in order to be able to write much more effectively. And in that connection, we're also going to talk about what it is that you need to do in order to make yourself sit down and write. That's also one of the things we'll talk about, because that is one thing that writers find supremely challenging, which is, well, we can write, but making ourselves sit down and write for X amount of time each day, or writing X number of words each day, well, that is a challenge. So we're going to talk a bit about that as well. Another thing that we are going to talk about in this course is show, don't tell. And that is not about structure, and it's neither a structure like the hero's journey is a structure or meta structure. It's not a technique for creating a structure either, like the snowflake method is, but it is actually a technique for writing. So the show, don't tell method is about, well, if I'm to sum it up, it's about not judging. It's about putting things down on paper in a way that captivates the reader in such a way that they actually create a reality in their own heads, so that that reality becomes much more palpable to them. So the thing about show, don't tell is that we just show the reader some little snippets, and the reader's brain will put those things together in order to create something that is something that the reader feels very intensely, because that is how our brain perceives things. It perceives things. Excuse me, let's see what's going on here. Okay, gallery. Okay, so our brain perceives things by filling in the blanks, because the amount of stuff that we are actually able to perceive with our eyes is not that big, or with our senses at any one time is not that big, because we don't have that much processing power. But our brain is a master at filling in the blanks. It just says, well, if there's this line and this line, then there must be this reality, and it creates this reality. So an example of that is South Park. Do you know this? Do you know this cartoon, South Park?
No. Yeah.
Well, so South Park is basically, it's a cartoon with very, very, very simple drawings. It's like just a few lines, and it's one of the most successful, cartoons or animated series in the world, because, because of the humor, etc. But it's interesting that they could do it with so few lines, and the reason they could do it with so few lines is because our brain is a master at filling in the blanks. It's all we need is a few lines, and then our brain is constantly scanning for certain things like eyes, nose, mouth. There's a face. Just as long as there are a few lines, that's enough. And so we are going to use that when we use show, don't tell, to make the brain itself come up with some images of what it is that you want the reader to see. And so an example of that is that we don't tell the reader, this person is a bad person, or this person is very big or very small. We just show the surroundings. And the supreme example of that, or the classical example of that, is when we talk about King Kong. For example, like what is the one thing that you think of when you hear King Kong? Like what's the first thing? Can somebody tell me? Like what is his characteristic? If you would give an
That
adjective.
he's enormous.
He's
Power.
enormous.
Power.
Exactly. Yeah, he's
Powerful.
enormous. He's enormous and he's powerful. Okay. And I would say that number one is he is enormous. Okay. So that is a very good example. So we all agree that that's what we think of when we think of King Kong. But if I said to you in a story, if I wrote, King Kong was enormous, and you've never heard of King Kong before, then you just say, well, yeah, you are saying that. Like, even if you want to play along with me, somehow your brain is saying, enormous, what does that even mean? So that's the writer's opinion. The writer is telling me to think that King Kong is enormous. Okay, I'll go along with it because I want to hear the rest of the story, but you're not really feeling it, right? You just, okay, it's a fact, he's enormous, whatever that means. But if I write, instead of writing he's enormous, I write King Kong looked down at the Empire State Building, that's all I need to write. And immediately, what do you see when I say King Kong looked down at the Empire State Building?
Someone who's extremely tall.
Yeah, right, right. And I didn't even say he was extremely tall, but you make that judgment. That's what Show Don't Tell is about. You make the reader make the judgment, because if you make the judgment, the reader, some part of the reader is going to resist it. So you're going to feel, wow, he's very tall. And also, I mean, he's standing in the middle of New York. What does this mean? If he's standing in the middle of New York and he's that tall, I don't know. I mean, he's probably stepping on some police cars, some taxis, you know, he's crunching some things as he goes. And you get this whole thing. You can probably hear the sirens and the helicopters and everything, all from this one sentence. King Kong looked down at the Empire State Building. So that's the power of Show Don't Tell. So yeah, so there's going to be those elements, those those kind of theoretical pillars of the course, and then we're going to do some practical things, and that is we're going to plan a short story. We're going to start planning. At least that's the plan, that we're going to start planning a short story already this evening that you can work on for next time, or that, you know, at least you can think about for next time and work on the further structure, because we only have 5 times. And so we're going to do that using pure technique. And so the idea is that I know that writing is an art, and each of us has our artistic process, but I really want to help you writing here. And so what I want to offer you is some technique, because we generally, if you come to this course, you probably have some art and some feeling of what it is you want to write. But if you can get some useful technique, then that will help you to transmute your inspiration into something practical. All right. So, but first of all, I would like to hear something about how the different people, what it is that have attracted you to this course, and also what experience you have with writing and what expectations you have of this course. Also bearing in mind that it is a course where we will also be talking about self-publishing, and a little bit about marketing as well. So, and the self-publishing part, we will talk about along the way, about the formatting, etc. But also in the last time, we will actually publish our anthology directly on Amazon, right here on the screen, so that you can see how to do it. So let me see. So I would like to hear from each of you. So I'm just going to take it as you appear on, you know, on this gallery view on Zoom. So, Juana, Nicola, could you start, please?
Okay. I chose the course because it's in English, and I thought it's a good chance for me to exercise my English. Also, technically, I haven't been written a very long time. At the beginning of my career, I wrote for about a month for a newspaper, a local newspaper, and then I ended up doing something else. But even the job I currently do, it's a job that has to do with the law. I think it requires a certain level of creativity because you have to go in front of the court and convince them of your ideas, and it requires to know how to interpret the law and be creative while still following the general line of the law. So I thought it would be a good chance for me to learn a couple of things about creativity and to see if I can